Recording in progress.
Good evening. Good evening, Springfield. Welcome to the May 2nd, 2022 Township of Springfield Planning Board meeting. Adequate notice has been given in accordance with the Sunshine Laws. Notice was published on December 16th in the Star Ledger, which is the official newspaper for the Township of Springfield for year 2021, and posted in the Annex building on December 17, 2021. Can we have a quick salute to the flag, please? 2022. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Perfect. Yes, and it's 2022, the official newspaper for 2022. Can we have a roll call?
Yes. All right, here we go. Mayor Alex Kaiser.
Present.
Committeeman Rich Huber. I think he's going to be late. Mr. David Barnett.
Here.
Mr. Andrew Schwartz is absent. Mr. Aaron Lawfer.
Here.
Mr. Brian Brandell.
Here.
Ms. Marissa Ruggiero.
Here.
Vice Chair Sharon Kessel. She may be late. I'll put her as absent. Mr. Thomas Lopes.
Here.
Mr. Scott Wishna. I think Mr. Scott Wishna, you're here. I saw you. Okay. Oh, and there's Committeeman Huber. So he's present, and Chair Tiger.
Perfect. We're all here.
Yep.
Okay. The April 18th meeting minutes have been on the Google Drive. Anyone have a chance to review any concerns, comments? Seeing none, could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I think I was away for that one, right?
No, you were there. It was the redevelopment.
I was there, then so moved.
Okay. Huber motioned and
Second.
Barnett seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And I think Lopes would abstain because he was not there.
I need to abstain. Yep.
Yep.
Me
So
too.
I wasn't there either, so I need to abstain as well.
Okay.
Me
Thanks
too.
for being honest. The next application is ordinance review, ordinance 2022-11, which is billboards. So this is something that came over from the governing body. We don't have any real great, structure around billboards, any ordinances, any areas designed. So I think the township committee took this as an opportunity to clean up an ordinance and create one. So, Mr. Hughes, can you jump on and give us a little bit of information on this and tell us your thoughts to make sure, because at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we believe that this is consistent with the master plan.
Chairman Tiger, I think Mike Mistretta is on.
Yep. I'm going to have Mistretta here. Yep.
Okay, because he's the one who actually wrote it, so he could tell you.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Hughes.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So just brief summary. I have reviewed this ordinance. Basically, it permits billboards as a conditional use within the GC and the I-20 zones. And they're permitted as a conditional use, which means that billboards need to satisfy the conditional use requirements that are set forth in 35-41.2. So it's a very extensive set of requirements in this ordinance. It includes 250-foot distance from any residential zone. Basically, the billboards have to be located adjacent to I-78. There's also a distance requirement between billboards. So it's 1,000 feet for static billboards and 3,000 feet for digital billboards. There's a maximum area limitation of 1,000 square feet, maximum limitation of 60 feet. And there's a number of other requirements, which I will not recite now, but are set forth in the ordinance. So basically, what the board is tasked to do here is to review the ordinance and first and foremost, determine its consistency with the master plan. So I also did review the existing master plan documentation dating back to the 97 master plan and several of the reexamination reports since then. I actually did not find any discussion whatsoever of billboards within the master plan. But nonetheless, I believe the board could find this ordinance to be consistent with the master plan, or certainly not inconsistent. And that's because there's a couple of goals from the land use element that I suppose would be sort of advanced, or at least determined to be consistent with this ordinance. So that would be avoiding conflicting land uses and land uses which generate commercial traffic through residential areas with special attention to the neighborhood commercial zones and adjacent residential districts. Well, there's also an emphasis, and this is goal number 4 of the land use element, to the continued economic health of the downtown Morris Avenue area and other commercial sections of the township is of paramount importance. So if you find this ordinance to be, in terms of advancing the township's economic development by appropriately locating billboards adjacent to I-78, I think the board could find that it's consistent with that particular goal of the master plan. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that would be my quick summary. Again, I did not draft this ordinance, but I have reviewed it, and I've reviewed it in terms of its consistency with the master plan, and those are my preliminary comments.
Okay, so you believe it's master
Chair
plan?
Tiger, Mike Mistretta is in the waiting room trying to get
I
in.
know. I'm going to bring him in 1 second. That's fine.
We put that together because the town had no ordinance whatsoever,
Yep.
as you said. And we got it together because we don't, on 78, they could have put one every foot, and, could have put it like crazy. So that's why we put it, that way it was put together.
Yep. Okay, Keenan, so you believe this is consistent with the master plan?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Apu, can you bring in Mike Mistretta before we open up the board? Is there a way to bring him in? And for the record, Sharon Kessel joined before we started the billboard ordinance, so she was on the meeting.
Noted.
Perfect. Mr. Mistretta, thank you for joining us. I know that you spent a lot of time with the Township Committee and our business administrator and created this ordinance. Anything additional you want to add that Mr.
Mr. Chairman, just really quickly, I support the Keenan's point of view as well as the committeeman. The absence of regulations being one of the biggest concerns. The Township Land Use Ordinances currently defines billboards under section 35-7 as any sign not located on the business or property which it is intended to promote. It does not have any specific design standards thereafter for billboards. Thus, currently there are no regulations, in our opinion, which specifically address this type of use within the township. And as what has been said already, this is really just putting design standards and regulations in place to protect the township, identify location on Route 78 eastbound specifically, and put in pretty extensive design regulations and keep it under a conditional use so that we can regulate these billboards moving forward.
That's perfect. And that's a great point. It would be conditional use, so it'd still come before the planning board for review, which is important.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Any members of the, so I'm going to go real quick to the board. Mayor, any questions or concerns? Alex? You're on mute.
Alex just seems to be talking to somebody else right now.
Okay, good. Committeeman Huber?
No,
Perfect. Mr. Barnett?
So given how the ordinance is written now, potentially how many billboards, I understand they'd have to be approved under conditional use, could there be along Springfield stretch of 78?
Approximately, there's 2,000 linear feet of frontage on one side of the overpass, another 1,600 linear feet on the other side. So it's approximately 3,600 linear foot of frontage, not including the overpass, which will still keep it under 4,000. So if the first one was established and met all of the requirements right on the, basically right on the lot line, and everything worked perfectly from there on, you would get a maximum of 3.
3. But some of that is adjacent to a residential neighborhood.
Yeah, there's quite extensive conditions. Right. So I'm not suggesting that all 3 would conform with all of the requirements.
Right. So probably practically speaking, we're at 1-ish, I'd imagine. Okay. And then in terms of billboards, I know that, throughout the years, I've seen this in other towns and even years I was involved in something like this, where like a business owner would try to put a billboard on the side of their building. Right. So, and I know our sign ordinances prevent advertisements of a different business, on a building where that business doesn't exist. Is this ordinance incorporating anything like that, or is it just mostly about the 78 corridor? I know we have other ordinances that would prevent those type of billboards. I'm just wondering if this is incorporated into one ordinance, or the billboard concept in general in town is strewn upon a couple of different ordinances.
This ordinance expressly prohibits billboards in any other portion of the town except for this one section of Route 78.
Right.
And that's it. So everything else, if something were to come forward, they're seeking variances before one of the boards for something that you just described.
Gotcha. Okay. So if an existing billboard were to go away,
Can't come back.
a company couldn't come in and then put a new billboard where an existing one would be now, because they would only have the option of going along Route 78.
I'm not sure of the answer of that one unless I knew the history and the background of the approval of the existing billboard.
Okay, don't worry about that question then.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I'm good.
Perfect. Mr. Brandell?
So this might be along the same line of questioning, but does this on its own affect existing billboards, or is this only for net new?
This is for new billboards located that are proposed to be constructed along Route 78 within that stretch, and that's it.
Okay. And the difference between digital, the location of digital or illuminated versus not, what's driving that they have to be further apart? Just that there's less light illuminating off of them?
Yeah, it's less busy. It's less distracting. If it's static or whether it's digital. But it's digital, it kicks it into a 3,000 foot between the two digital billboards. Where if it's static, there's a 1,000 linear foot of separation.
And is that more restrictive than other towns, less restrictive than other towns, standard?
That's something that we commonly see in the towns that we represent. Static billboards are, just that, they're static, whereas the digital billboards, there's a lot more going on. There's a lot more messaging. There's, I don't want to say distraction, but there's more going on, and therefore they should be placed at a larger distance between them.
Sorry, my question wasn't clear. The 1,000 and 3,000, are those standard practices, or are those more or less restrictive than other towns?
I could tell you it's consistent with what we've been representing in other towns.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, Aaron?
Yeah, I think you already stated it, but I just want to ask one more time. Everything that's already there is grandfathered in with the older rules, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Marissa?
Yes, my question is, and I'm not all that familiar about, how the billboard selection is. Would the town or would any of the boards have any say in what the billboard is? How does that work?
Do you mean what the billboard says? Or
Yeah, what the billboard says.
displays?
Yes. Yeah, the messaging on the billboard.
I could only assume that if an applicant would come into the planning board and make an application, and depending on who that particular group or company represents, they would make the presentation to the planning board and describe everything at that time before the board.
Okay, so at any time the billboard would change, they would have to come before us for review?
If somebody were to come in, get an approval and construct it, I guess the question is, if a different company came in and changed it, and would they have to come back in front of the board? I think my answer would be, it depends on the conditions of the approval and what the board approved and what what restrictions or design criteria for that particular board, whether or not the modifications being proposed by the subsequent owner would require them to come back to the planning board for a new approval. I'm not sure if I could respond to that without knowing what those details were.
Okay, I guess I'm just perceiving, even not necessarily new owner, but if, a billboard where they may want to change the content of the billboard that's up there. Because I'll see around, on different highways, billboards that change, 1 week it's something and then the next month it's something else. So I just kind of want to get an understanding of, what type of approval process that's needed for the changes of the content of the billboard.
If I could help out a little bit, this is Glenn. You have to be very careful. Messaging is sacred. So that would be something that we would have to be very, very careful of. You really can't control much of it. It would be something we'd have to look to the municipal attorney for, and certainly either the zoning or planning board too. But the messaging, it's really, really, it's a really tricky issue. I think that's what you're asking, right, Liz?
Yeah. And I understand First Amendment, and I understand that there's a lot of
exactly.
And all of it. Yeah.
Political messages, free
I'm
speech,
just right. I'm just
that. Yeah. So we're talking about that a billboard exists in a location.
No, I understand that.
Whoever advertises on that billboard, is the purview of the company who's selling them the ad.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Lopes,
Nothing here. I'm good.
Mr. Wishna, you're on mute. Is that okay? Scott's on mute. Okay, go ahead, Scott.
No questions.
No questions. Perfect. Sharon?
No questions.
I don't either. I have any questions. Mr. Barnett and team came up with all of them that I had. So let's take this matter and open it up to the public. Is there any member of the public that wish to speak on the ordinance 2022-11 billboards? Who? Anyone?
I'm not seeing anyone with their hand raised.
Seeing none, I'm going to close this matter to the public and remand it back to the board. I think from hearing from Keenan and Mr. Mistretta, we hear that it's consistent with the master plan. So I would like someone to make a motion to authorize Keenan or Glenn to send a note to the township committee saying that we heard this matter on today's date and that we found it consistent with the master plan.
So moved.
Anyone second? Can I have a roll call? Roll call, Jen.
Who seconded it, Mr. Chair?
Wishna.
Okay. Mr. Barnett?
Yes.
Mr. Wishna?
Yeah.
Mayor Kaiser?
Yes.
Committeeman Huber?
Yes.
Mr. Lawfer?
Yes.
Mr. Brendel?
Yes.
Mr. Lopes?
Yes.
Vice Chair Kessel?
Yes.
Chairman Tiger?
Yes. Perfect. Moving along. Okay, we have resolutions. The first one is application 1 dash. Thank you, Mr. Mistretta, for joining the board. I appreciate you coming.
Thank you. Good night.
You can hang out with us the rest of the night if you want. You'd be pretty
Have a
interesting.
great night. Thank you.
All right. Application 1-2022S. This is for 539 LLC minor subdivision lot line. That resolution will be carried to the June 6th planning board meeting with no further notice. The next one is Patriots Way Urban LLC, 40 Church Mall, preliminary and final subdivision, major subdivision blocks 209 and 208, lots 1.01, 5, 6, 8, 9. Everyone had a chance to get the resolution. I know Glenn and Jen worked a lot on it and put it on the Google Drive. Anyone have any questions or concerns?
Nope.
Seeing none, can I answer?
I had one question via email, but I don't know that somebody responded to it.
What was it? Go ahead, Scott.
Glenn, you're talking, but you're on mute.
It's about a breakaway gate, and I'm not sure where you wound up with it. I thought it had been left up to Mike Disco to decide whether it was appropriate or not. That's all, Scott. So I don't know whether that covered it or not.
No, it didn't, because the resolution didn't capture the discussion that happened during the meeting, which was, it was up to him to determine whether it's a gate or signage. Do not enter signage. It was,
So,
what we determined was the gate, whether there's a gate, signage, or nothing.
so then let's add something, Glenn.
It's
which
not
we-
gate or no gate. That's not the issue. That's not the,
Yeah.
it's not a binary decision.
So it's up to Mr. Disco to evaluate whether another condition that we're going to add on the resolution, which we will adopt at the same time, where that Mr. Disco will evaluate whether a break gate, signage, or what control will be needed at that area by CBS.
Right.
Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the resolution with that condition that Glenn's adding in right now?
So moved.
Any
Second.
second? Can I have a roll call?
Mr. Barnett,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kessel,
yes,
Mayor Kaiser,
Yes.
Committeeman Huber,
yes,
Mr. Brendel,
Yes.
Ms. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Wishna,
Yes.
and Chair Tiger.
Yeah.
Motion passes.
Perfect. Thank you. The next was a waiver of site plan for Verizon Wireless, 1 Cornell Parkway, block 3903, lot 16. This was for waiver of cell tower. We were notified by the applicant that they wished us to carry this to the June 6th, 2022 agenda date with no further notice. They didn't have to notice anyway, but we will carry that to, oh, never mind. Actually, I take that back. That is a resolution. So everyone saw that resolution. I take that back. Everyone saw that resolution on the Google Drive. If someone can make a motion to approve the resolution.
Not me.
so be
Mr.
it. I'll do it.
And I'll second it. Let's do a roll call.
Okay, 1 second. And Joe. Okay, Committeeman Huber,
See,
Mayor Kaiser,
Yes.
Mr. Lawfer.
Yes, and also yes to the previous motion.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Lawfer.
It's okay.
Sorry. Mr. Brendel,
Yes.
Ms. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Lopes,
I need
You
to.
weren't
abstain
here,
because
sorry.
I was not there. Yep.
sorry, Mr. Wishna,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kessel,
yes,
and Chairman Tiger.
Perfect. Yes.
Thanks.
Okay. Now on to the applications. And yes, Dish Wireless LLC, 1 Cornell Parkway, block 3903, lot 16. They've reached out to us and asked us to carry that meeting till June 6th. No further notice will be published, even though they didn't have to, and that will be heard on the 6th. Perfect. The last matter before us for business is application 3-2022S. This is for Decor Outlets of America, 114, 124, 128 Route 22 West, blocks 1301, lots 11, 12, 13 for preliminary and final subdivision with variances, lot consolidation in a retail store. So for everyone's, who, if you want to bring in the attorney and a few folks, but for everyone's, to give them a little bit of a benefit, this is the Macy's, the Chinese food restaurant, and the COVID place that will be demolished to put together a new building called Floor Decor. I know Mr. Disco isn't there. You know, I've had a chance to review it a little bit with him, and he didn't take any issue with it. He had a few issues that I will bring up through the meeting. But I wanted to go to Mr. Hughes to kind of give us his little thought process. You had a chance to review it with Mr. Disco. You can advise the board on a few issues.
Well, Chairman Tiger, if I may, I'm going to recuse myself from this application because I have a direct conflict with this one. So I'll step out and log off.
Okay. Thanks for joining. Good seeing you.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
All right. So, Keenan, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, if you could just give us a little overview and any concerns that you may have, and then we'll open up to the applicant.
Yeah, sure. So as you pointed out, this is a roughly 4.5 acre property that contains those 3 existing buildings: Macy's, the Chinese restaurant, and the former Goodwill building. So those would be demolished. The applicant's proposing a roughly 70,000 square foot floor and decor building. The applicant did meet with the TRC a few months ago. Mike and I reviewed the application at that time preliminarily, provided the applicant with some technical feedback, which they've incorporated in the application, which has been submitted to the board. There are variances being requested for rear yard setback, although this is, at least in my opinion, a de minimis deviation of just over a foot. Lot coverage, although they're actually improving upon the existing condition. There's a variance requested for the outdoor storage of goods for the propane, which is being stored on the westerly side of the building. There is a variance requested for the number of parking spaces, and I'm sure you'll hear some testimony on that. We did review this issue in the context of the TRC, and we were comfortable in terms of the analysis that they were able to provide based on parking counts at their other New Jersey locations, and I'm sure they'll get into that. And as part of the parking proposal, they're actually proposing to bank 20 spaces. And then there's also variances requested for the number of loading spaces as well as signage. So I know with that, Mr. Chairman, is a bit of an intro. There's a couple of issues that are raised in the review letters between myself and Mr. Disco, which maybe we can touch on during the course of the application. But that relates to tree replacement, landscaping. I know there was discussion about sidewalks in Mr. Disco's letter, whether a sidewalk makes sense on Stern Avenue. A request to address rooftop mechanical equipment, what's proposed, how is it screened, and then also whether or not there's any shielding being provided for the trash area, if warranted. So I would just ask the applicant if they could to just address those items in their direct testimony.
Yep. And
That's
then, so Glenn, the attorney has 4 witnesses. If you don't mind, do you want to swear in all 4 at the same time, or you want to do them separately because we're virtual?
How do you want to run the hearing? You want to just have them all put their testimony in and then open it up to questions?
Yes, I'm doing, everyone will speak, and then we'll open it up to the public for any and all questions that they have on the entire application.
Let's throw them all in then.
Go ahead. Counselor, can you,
Howard, you want to set it up and then we'll swear your
Sure.
book in?
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Howard Jenislaw from the law firm Gibbons PC, representing the applicant. I do intend to call 4 witnesses. As was indicated, this is the consolidation of 3 lots, the Macy's, the Chinese restaurant, and what used to be the Goodwill, more recently used for COVID testing, in order to build a Floor and Decor retail store. Floor and Decor is a leading retailer of hard surface flooring. We'll hear a little bit more about that from our first witness. And as indicated, I intend to call 4 witnesses. I do have a little bit of an introduction that I'd like to outline for the board in terms of the approvals that we're seeking. In addition to what Mr. Hughes indicated, we also noted that there were some additional items of relief in the consultant reports that were authored by Mr. Keenan and by Mr. Disco. And I just wanted to briefly put on the record the additional items of relief that we agree are necessary. Mr. Keynes, I'd be happy to send those to you separately for purposes of the resolution. Those items are variances or design standard exceptions from section 35-32.4. That has to do with the sidewalks that Mr. Keenan mentioned, or that Mr. Hughes mentioned. Section 35-15.5E3. That has to do with 80% lot coverage maximum in the non-critical areas of the site. That's different from the general impervious coverage variance. Section 35-31.4, indirect lighting, whereas we propose internally illuminated lighting. Section 35-31.5G, direction and safety signs are allowed without advertising. We have curbside pickup signs with the Floor and Decor name. Section 35-23.8B, which has to do with screening of refuse and recycling. Same with section 35-24.1I. And then lastly, section 35-25.1B, which is average illumination at driveways and parking lots, which we exceed. We have reviewed the consultant reports carefully, and we agree with all of the recommendations that are set forth. There were a number of items where we were asked to provide discussion or testimony, and we will do that as part of our presentation. I anticipate calling 4 witnesses, and this would be a good time to swear them in. There will be a company representative, Julie Starzinski from Floor and Decor, Richard Persanik for civil engineering, Adam Gibson for traffic, and Donna Holmquist for planning.
Go ahead.
If you'd like to swear them in now, I would be happy to proceed.
Okay, can we get them up on the screen, Apu?
I think they are all up on the screen.
All right. See them.
Yeah,
All right, well,
they're all there.
we got so many baseball cards here, I can't tell.
Everyone's
1,
present.
2, 3, got them all. All right. Do you all swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, the proceedings before the board tonight, so help you God?
I do.
All right. Julie, you're the Director of Construction and Design for Floor and Decor, is that correct?
Correct.
So you're just, you're a representative of the applicant, is it, right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Let's see. Who's testifying on civil engineering? Kimberly?
Rich.
Rich, all right. Rich, have you appeared before the board before?
Not this board, no.
Okay, could you just give us your background quickly, please?
Certainly. I graduated NJIT with a Bachelor's of Science. I'm a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, as well as 7 other states. My license is within good standing. I've appeared in front of many boards throughout the state, zoning and planning.
And who are you employed by, buddy?
Kimley Horn.
Okay. And you've been doing this. You've been doing this for how many years?
I have 18 years of relevant design experience.
Okay, thanks, Rich. Adam, could
Yes,
you
sir.
give us your background too, please?
Yes, I'm a traffic engineer with Kimley Horn. I received my master's in transportation engineering from Clemson University in 2004, and I have an active and good standing PE license in the state of New Jersey and several other states. I have not testified in front of this board, but have in front of several boards throughout New Jersey.
Okay, and you've been accepted as a traffic expert before those boards, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you really did go to Clemson, huh?
I did, yes.
Okay. My son went to South Carolina. That's all. And for planning, we have Donna.
That's right.
Hey, Donna, I don't think you've testified before the board yet, have you?
Well, I must say, I think that Guitar Center has been there a long time, since the early 90s. And believe it or not, I recall doing the signage on that. That makes me like really ancient.
All right, enough of that. Donna, you're a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey.
Yes, I am.
And you work at Preferred Planning Group, which is your own company.
I am the CEO and founder of the firm. Yes.
And you've been accepted as a licensed professional planner before numerous boards across the state.
Hundreds of communities, yes. And also in Union County, Mountainside, Summit, and Union Township.
And your license is valid as of tonight, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Chairman?
I think that we can accept them as, anyone have any concerns?
No,
Nope, seeing. Okay, Counselor, so when a couple issues I want to point out to you for when you can include in your thing is number one, I know that we discussed that there's going to be 6 trucks at night. So if you can include that in your discussion. The property line at the stern area, we need to look at potentially drainage because it's a little bit higher raised. And then talk about the reason for the 2 bays versus 3 as required by ordinance. And then I know when you came to the TRC, David Barnett and I, we had a chance to review it. We talked about the out onto 22 and how you redesign it where you're doing 1 in, 1 out and how that will help that process.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will
Let's
definitely.
go. Up your engineer or whoever's
Bring up Yeah, so just, I submitted my affidavit beforehand. I assume all is in order. I know Mr. Lopes was going to recuse himself and I don't see him, so I assume he's done that, being that he works for the project architect. I would like to formally amend the project description to provide that deliveries will be 4 to 8 deliveries per week, or 4 to 8 truck deliveries 5 days per week. I also wanted to note that I pre-marked all of the exhibits to save time as we move through the process. They're numbered A1 through A10, and probably it would work best if the witnesses were allowed to share their screen so that they can move through their exhibits as they testify. So with that, I would call Julie as the first witness. Thank
Howard,
you.
just before you do that, you marked A1 through A10. Are any of those already submitted as part of your application?
No, those are all things that were prepared separate from the application documents.
Great. Okay, thank you very much.
So first witness is Julie Starzinski. Thank you, Glenn, for taking care of all the swearing in. Julie, if you could just give the board a quick summary of your own background so that they understand where you're coming to them from.
Yep. So I've been with Floor & Decor for 5 years. Previously was with the Carter's Babies and Kids Clothes, based out of Atlanta for 5, and then the TJX companies for almost 9.5 years before that. I've worked in store planning, construction, real estate, as well as design. My background.
What's your relationship specifically to this project?
So I oversee the project team that's actually running this project. So I'm over both the construction and design of this project.
Excellent, thank you. So could you give the board a little bit of background on just who Floor & Decor is, since this will be their first store in this immediate area?
Yep, so Floor & Decor is a hard surface material retailer. We sell tile, wood, stone, as our sign indicates, for applications to floor and walls. We cater to both do-it-yourselfers as well as contractors. About 80,000 square feet, typical prototype store, but on this location it'll be 70 or closer to 70. We have over 1 million in stock, or 1 million square feet of in-stock flooring and wall tile and flooring for everyone. So the one thing that we actually pride ourselves on is the fact that we have job lot quantities. So you can come in and buy your entire project for your restroom or your kitchen or your entire flooring project in your house and be able to actually walk out of the store with that job lot quantity.
Great, thank you. And where does Floor & Decor currently have stores in New Jersey?
Yep, so we currently have 5 different locations. The closest one to you guys is Elizabeth, New Jersey. Sorry, it's one of our newer ones in New Jersey. It's about 8.1 miles away from Springfield, New Jersey. We also have stores in Wayne, New Jersey, Paramus, Morristown, and Toms River.
And how many stores are there total at this point?
So at this point, we actually have 174 stores. I believe at the time this was submitted to you guys, it was said 153, but we have since opened much more in the past couple months.
You've been busy.
Very busy.
Why don't we move on to the building appearance? Exhibit A1, which was previously submitted, is a building rendering. And if you could, do you have the ability to share your screen to put that up?
Trying to, it's not letting me.
You should have a share button.
Yeah, it's not, it keeps giving me a warning message.
Okay.
Else have it that can share it for you?
Yeah, I have it. Let me see if I can get it pulled up here. 1 moment. Best laid plans, right? The technology falls apart. Okay, let's see.
We're getting bad storms in Atlanta, so I'm just hoping that I don't lose the connection. So.
See. Okay, can you see my screen at the moment?
No.
Oh, wait, here we go. Wait, hold on, I wasn't doing it correctly. Okay, there we go.
There you go.
Can you see an elevation?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so Julie, if you could just walk the board through kind of what the building design is all about, understanding that you're not the architect, of course, but you're the person who oversees the architect and gives direction for what the ultimate store will look like.
Correct. So this is actually not our site-specific elevation. It's very, very close to our site-specific elevation. This is our prototype rendering. As you can see, we have our typical signage, Floor & Decor on our main storefront. We add tile, wood, and stone so that people understand what we're actually selling. There's been a lot of question in the past of what goods we sell. So we've added that element into our storefront signage to make sure people understand who we are. Along with that, we typically have our customer pickup on the front of the store where, let's say I am buying a pallet of floor tile to redo my entire house. I can actually pull my pickup truck right to this customer pickup area. A forklift will load it into the back of my car and I'm good to go. So basically the way that we've designed the building, we've done a lot of different things with the entrance to highlight the entrance. You'll see the left and right towers that are that kind of darker gray. We have a red awning that protects the customers from weather coming in, as well as just adds an element. Red is definitely our color that we like to show, and it really indicates our corporate branding and identity. Same with the canopy over the sliding doors near the customer pickup on the far right. forward left, sorry. Protects customers coming in, as well as just adds that corporate branding, corporate color to our storefront. We've had pilasters throughout the building because we want to make sure that there's some different reliefs in it, so that it doesn't just look like a big box sitting there. Prototypically, we do 3 colors, and we use that as our corporate branding and identity, so that when you drive by the store, you actually know it's a Floor & Decor.
There was a comment in the engineer's review letter about mechanical equipment on the roof and whether it's screened.
Yes. So in all of our stores, we use our parapet heights to actually screen the HVAC units from the public right away. So whatever the jurisdiction requires, we actually do a sightline study to make sure that the parapet actually covers any of the HVAC from any sightline that can be seen from public view.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm going to move on to the next exhibit. Before I move off that exhibit, are there any questions on this exhibit?
No, you can continue.
Okay, thank you. So the next exhibit, let me see if I can share there we go. So we just wanted to briefly show what the inside of a Floor & Decor store looks like. Clearly the board's focus is on the outside, but we submitted these exhibits ahead of time. And so Julie, if you could just maybe give us a sentence or two on each one of these. There's 5 photos in all that we'll go through. And they're labeled A2A through A2E.
So this site is actually a shot of the middle of our store where we have all of our tile. As you can see, it's job lot quantity, so I can go in and buy a pallet or 2 of the tile that I want and take it home with me to actually do my project. As you can see in front, there's boards that kind of showcase what that tile looks like. This is our wood inspiration area where you can go in and start to look at any type of hardwood that we carry. A lot easier to show it in this presentation than actually in the racking. This is our Deco tile. So this
Julie,
is
just let me interrupt you a second. Just refer to each exhibit as you're going. So that was 2B. Now you're on 2C. Okay.
Yep, I can do that. Sorry about that. So
it's okay.
Our Deco tile. So this is our more decorative tile. You might use it as a backsplash in your kitchen or an accent tile in your restrooms. Next, 2D. So this is supposed to be a shot of our design gallery. This is one of our areas in the store where any person can come in and have a design consultation free of charge and get some ideas on how to redo their house. Next, please. 2E is just a shot toward the front of our store, showing the registers and kind of the atmosphere of the entire building.
Great, thank you. So now let's move back to some operational issues or questions. Could you just briefly walk us through what the hours of operation will be?
Yes, so we actually had a change in our hours of operation. During COVID, we actually started to look at better ways to give people better work-life quality. So typical hours for us Monday through Friday are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then Saturdays 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then Sundays are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we kind of listened to our associates and wanted them to have more time to spend with their families.
And of course, those are current hours and they can change in the future depending on business demands, but those are the hours that Floor & Decor anticipates, at least in the immediate term.
That is correct.
Now, I'd like to turn your attention to truck deliveries. Specifically, as I noted at the outset, we corrected the number of deliveries per day. And there was a question from the chairman early on about that, as well as the reason for 2 loading bays instead of the 3, which are proposed. If you could address that, please.
Yep. So obviously in the first submission, there was an error in the number of trucks. We do 4 to 8 trucks 5 days a week, and it just depends on the sales volume. If there's certain time periods, typically people are trying to renovate before Thanksgiving, Christmas holidays, so we're a little bit busier. Beginning of spring to mid summertime normally. So we might have a couple increases in truck numbers, so it might reach that 8 a day, but typically it's more closely to 6, sorry. So with that being said, we send the trucks in overnight to avoid any conflict with the customers. So our trucks, once they arrive at the loading bay, they are immediately taken off the trailer and put directly onto the sales floor. We have very little backstock. So in order to avoid that conflict between customer shopping and us replenishing the store, we do the trucks overnight. Now, one thing that is also important to note is that we have a distribution center in Baltimore, Maryland. We stagger our delivery times. So when the schedule comes out, it's typically in 2-hour blocks. So for example, in Springfield, The first truck would probably arrive at the store at 8 p.m. The next truck is not scheduled to arrive till 10 p.m. We have 2 different docks so that if perchance the first truck has not left, we can back them into the second dock. But because it's so close proximity to Baltimore, we shouldn't have that much of an overlap of the trucks arriving.
So it sounds like you're saying that in most instances, there would not be more than one truck there at a time. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, say that again, it broke up.
It sounds like you're saying in most circumstances, there would not be more than one truck there at a time because of the way that they're staggered.
That is correct.
Do you ever foresee a set of circumstances when you would have 3 trucks there at the same time?
The only thing that we've had happen is if there was an accident and they were staggered up on a highway, but it very rarely happens because we do a really good job of communicating and telling them, hey, that truck's not out yet, you need to wait. And with it being so close to Baltimore, we'll have more control over that.
But that you had said would be at nighttime. It would be coming at nighttime anyway.
Correct. It'd be overnight deliveries. That's just the way that we handle things to avoid that conflict with customers on the sales floor as we're trying to bring product onto the sales floor at the same time.
Yep. And I'm sure, Counselor, you can, your engineer could testify that you back completely and side on industrial and commercial.
Yes, exactly. We'll definitely hit that. And in the unlikely event there was a third truck, there's certainly space on site where that truck would be waiting until it could reach one of the loading docks.
Yep.
Julie, let me now direct your attention to outdoor storage. We heard Keenan talk earlier about the proposed propane storage area for which we've sought a variance. Is there any other outdoor storage or display of goods at the site?
At this time, no. We typically do in the past, but we've restricted it at this location.
Okay. And how about a basement? Is there any basement proposed here?
There's no basement proposed.
Okay. And in terms of customer pickups, could you describe briefly how that works when someone orders something online and then they come to the store? We have some signs showing the customer pickup spaces. Talk a little bit about how that process works.
Yep. So funny because I just did this a couple of months ago. So any customer can come in and pick up their order from that customer pickup. Typically, when you order online, you actually are telling them when you want to pick it up. So you give them a time frame. They'll actually reply back to you with a window. So you're picking up, let's say, between 1 and 3 p.m. Other than that, a customer can actually physically walk into the customer pickup and say, hey, I'm here to pick up my order. If it's somebody that, just finished shopping in the store, or they've already made plans beforehand to pick it up on a certain date and time.
Excellent. Thank you. And now let's talk about lighting. There were some questions in the review letters about whether lights would be dimmed at night. Could you address that, please?
Yep. So our parking lots are dimmed an hour before. I'm sorry. Our parking lights come on an hour before our opening, so about 6 a.m., and they will turn off 30 to 60 minutes after closing. Now, our wall packs that are on the building also have sensors. So at night, when a truck is coming in, if somebody's walking out to get into the tractor trailer, the lights will pop on for them to get in and out of their trailer safely. The wall signs themselves are actually timed with the parking lot lights. So they will come on about 6 a.m. and then turn off between 30 and 60 minutes after the store is closed.
And how about as far as trash and recycling pickup? How often does that occur?
Trash and recycling typically is 3 times a week or could go up to 2 weeks. How that operates is it's a compactor. So with the compactor in the recycling enclosure, the store manager, also known as a chief executive merchant, will actually call facilities, and facilities has 24 hours to actually pick that trash up from them.
Thank you. Those are all the questions I have for this witness at this time. I think we've addressed all the operational items that were in the 2 consultant reports.
Sure. Mr. Hughes, anything that you have to add? Any questions?
Nothing for this witness, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, me either. Any members of the board? Let me go around. Mayor Kaiser?
Not for her.
Mr. Huber?
How close is the store to the public? In other words, in the back of the store where you're going to be delivering, how close is that to any apartments or anything there?
There's no residential directly in that area.
It's all commercial, Rich.
Yeah,
all commercial, the back of the building, everything.
Commercial, industrial, everything.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Barnett?
You mentioned the propane storage. Do you sell propane so people can come with their tanks to refill?
No, the propane's actually for our forklifts. So we have propane forklifts that in the next couple of years, we're thinking about changing them all over to electric to get rid of that propane storage, but that's still under review with everybody.
Okay, so that propane, outside propane, is actually typical to the rest of your locations as well?
That is correct. It's in an OSHA cabinet. There's typically, I believe, 6 to 8 containers in there. The store employees will switch them out based on when the forklift is in need. There's a typical delivery schedule that they'll come and replace those. But yeah, it's just for the propane on the forklifts.
Okay, I understand. Great. I would certainly encourage you to move the electric route.
Yeah, we have had a lot of research into it. The only issue that we do have is just the sheer weight of the project, of the product. It gets a little tricky on electric forklifts. For sure.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Lawfer, I think you left. Did you leave?
Yeah, he's gone.
He's gone. Mr. Brendel?
I have nothing for this witness. No, thank you.
Mrs. Ruggiero?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Mr. Wishna?
No questions.
Mrs. Kessel? Sharon?
Nothing for me.
Okay, just for the public's knowledge, so Julie, you please stay here. You're not going anywhere. We're going to do any public questions at the end of the applications for all witnesses that come up.
Okay.
Counselor, do you want to go with number 2?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Witness number 2 will be Richard Prokanik, who has already been sworn in and accepted as an expert in civil engineering. So, Rich, I would like to ask you to work through your exhibits, orient the board to the site, describe the project, and address the consultant comments. Hopefully you can share your screen. Excellent.
Okay, great. So again, Rich Prokanik, licensed engineer from Kimley Torn. This project was prepared under my direct supervision. I am the engineer of record. What I have presented on my screen, and I'm hoping everyone can see this, is Exhibit A3. It's an aerial exhibit. This was not previously provided to the board as part of the application package, as Howard indicated. But I would like to present this exhibit just to give the board an overall view of the surrounding area.
Do you want to mark this, Glenn, as a...
So all of the exhibits were pre-marked, so the markings are in the top right in red to hopefully move things along. So Rich, as you give your testimony, if you could please identify each exhibit by exhibit number. Thank you.
Howard was very efficient. So all we want to do is with each witness that gets up for an exhibit, just identify it that it's an aerial, marked as this one is A3. If you have a date on it, Rich, just state that for the record too. Okay, but
certainly the aerial exhibit is dated April 25th, 2022 on the bottom of the screen, and then was marked May 2nd at the top right, like Howard was mentioning. I do have a little red arrow just to maybe help the board see what I'm pointing to.
Okay, and when you're pointing to it, just indicate where it is, since we won't have a record. Just, center, 12 o'clock, or however you want to do it. Okay, Rich? Thanks.
I'll do my best.
I know.
So we, as previously mentioned, this project exists as 3 individual lots today. It's our plan to consolidate them into one overall lot. So all of my testimony will be under the assumption existing and proposed conditions are one lot, just for ease of clarity. We do have a solid yellow, that's a dashed yellow line around the entirety of the parcels. And then we have a lighter black line in the middle showing where those interior property lines are. This property is located on Route 20, on the corner of Route 22 and Stern Avenue. Route 22 is a state highway and is under the DOT jurisdiction. We do have our application into the DOT for review, and I'll get further into the technical details throughout my testimony. Stern Avenue, located directly east of the site, is a municipal road. As the site exists, we have a 40,000 square foot Macy's furniture gallery. The middle lot is a 5,200 square foot Chinese cuisine restaurant. And then the Goodwill store is all the way to the west. And that's about 14,500 square feet. All 3 of these buildings are being proposed to be demolished. where we will build a new 70,000 square foot floor and decor. As you can see in the surrounding areas, there are no residential communities in the near vicinity. Behind the property to the north is industrial zone, that is I-20. And then to the south, east, and west is all highway commercial, same zone as we are. Should I elaborate anything more on the existing conditions, or can I move to my proposed?
No, you can move to proposed, and as the engineer, I just want you to focus on some of the signage on the side signs of the buildings. They have a few too many, but my board engineer was okay with it, but I'd like you to provide some testimony on it, and then talk about the back corner where stern and the larger lot is, where it's higher, and how you're going to add some drains to alleviate the crop potential.
Certainly. I will make sure that I hit those points very clearly for you, sir. The next exhibit I'm turning to is Exhibit A4. It's loading, so just give me a second and I can give you the date. It's entitled Site Plan Rendering, dated April 27th, 2022, and was previously marked as Exhibit A4 on May 2nd, 2002, in the upper right-hand corner. Again, this exhibit was not a part of the site plan application package. And what it is it's the landscaping plan that is further rendered with some of the tags removed, just to give an overall look of what the site is going to look like and how it's going to operate. So right in the middle of the lot, pushed to the rear, is the 70,656 square foot proposed floor and decor. We are requesting a variance for the side yard, and that's at the northwest corner of where my mouse is right now. It is required 50-foot setback, and we're proposing 48.5. We believe it's a de minimis variance. It's a much further improvement from what's there today, although it does require a variance. This portion of the building is dedicated to the loading for the deliveries, and it has 2 bays and then a dumpster and a compactor for trash. We are reducing impervious coverage by approximately 7,800 square feet. That would provide 82.6%, where 63 is permitted by ordinance. So we do still require a variance. With the specific requirement for the non-critical areas, the township identifies critical areas as wetlands, floodplains, and steep slopes, none of which exist on our site. So our non-critical area for this property would be the entire 4.5 acres of the lot. So our impervious coverage number wouldn't change relative to critical versus non-critical. Just focusing back in on the loading. This is a well, so the point in front of the loading dock will be 4 feet lower than the finished grade of the surrounding roadways. It'll be held back with a concrete wall that's 4 feet tall. And then above that, the wall will extend an additional 2 feet. And then on top of that, it'll be a 2.5-foot fence. So from a screening perspective, that will give us 6.5 feet. Sorry, 8.5 feet from the loading dock to the top of the fence. We are asking for a variance, as previously indicated, for propane storage. It's solely for the operations of the forklifts, and that's located at the southeast corner of the building. It's not clear, but it's in the general area of where my cursor is being pointed. In terms of access to the site, we are proposing 2 curb cuts along 22, which would operate as one individual driveway. By DOT definition. You'll have a right in and then an individual right out back onto 22. Under current conditions, there are 4 curb openings, so we will be reducing that from 4 to 2. On Stern Avenue, there are 2 existing driveways. We will be proposing 2 as well. The one that's directly in front of the floor and decor, it will be further back from the intersection of 22 and Stern. And then the driveway behind the store is in about the same location as it is today. This driveway is really intended to provide access for fire engines and for the deliveries to the site. It's our intent to have all deliveries from Route 22 turn onto Stern Avenue, make a left into the site behind the building, navigate around, and then be able to back in to these two loading docks. And then the compactors on the outside over here. We did run.
Let me interrupt you real quick. Can you address for the board how I know that? Did you submit traffic circulations to be able to show that? Go ahead.
Certainly. So if I refer to the site plans that were previously submitted, these are not marked. They are part of the site plan application package. We do have truck turning included. This is for the WB 67, for which we anticipate deliveries to come from Stern Avenue. They would make a left into the site and then be able to back in to the two loading docks in that area on the west side of the building.
Hey, Rich, what sheet is that of the package?
C800.
Thank you.
Rich, if you could also comment on the configuration of the egress driveway, which was something that had come up at TRC.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the concerns that was expressed to us was safety leaving the site and doing what we could from a geometric perspective to prevent a vehicle from leaving this westerly egress point and trying to immediately cut across through two lanes to take the U-turn to Route 22. I can refer back to the A3 aerial exhibit, and you can see the U-turn from the westbound to the eastbound is almost perpendicular to our proposed driveway. Our goal was to push it as far west as we could and still stay on our property just to discourage that maneuver. There is an additional U-turn further west. I think it was about 1,200 feet up down the road a little bit. So it wouldn't be too much of an inconvenience for someone to actually pull onto the road, make a safe transition into the left lane, and then into the U-turn. We angled the driveway and pushed it as far west to discourage that cut across Route 22.
Yep, and that was part of what the subcommittee, when David Barnett and I met with you, was being a part of the TRC, kind of gave feedback with to avoid too.
And then while we're on maneuverability, we also have a fire engine that's able to navigate the site, coming in from the rear and then being able to make the turn and run directly in front of the store and then out on the Stern as well. The fire truck can make the maneuver from the other entrances as well, but this is the most direct circulation of the building. So that's what we're demonstrating to the board.
Perfect. Do you have anything further, or can we open up to the board for some questions?
I have some more, but if you'd like to go to questions, I'm happy to address them.
Okay, so let's go and open to the board to see if they have any questions, and then we can circle back. Mr. Kaiser? Mayor Kaiser?
Yes. Did you address, and I'm sorry if you did, but some of the drainage questions? I thought he was going to give some testimony, and maybe we cut him.
Yeah.
You cut him off, Chairman. So
Right.
if we could give Rich a chance to just provide some color on that. I think our engineer asked for a little bit of testimony where it was raised and then potential runoff to other neighboring.
Yeah, so Rich, that's my fault. Why don't we go back and talk about I know the two issues were landscaping and trees and drainage.
Yeah, so on the screen right now, it's C400 from the previously submitted plan set as part of the application package. And this was the plan that Mr. Disco reviewed. And the area of his concern is the north property line in between the industrial building, that's not our property, and our floor and decor. We do provide a yard inlet behind our curb, and we're going to swale any runoff into that area. And there's an existing inlet that the block was turned off, but it is there, and we're not proposing to remove it. It would be right there. You can see that. So we'll turn that layer on. We believe that these two inlets do appropriately capture water and convey it safely, but we're more than happy to continue to work with Mr. Disco to his satisfaction if he wants something else.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to speak to Mr. Disco, and we'd like additional drainage back there. If you're able to work with Mr. Disco and he finds that what you propose is acceptable, then the board will be fine. But I'm going to put if the board acts favorably, that we're going to add additional drainage subject to the engineer's approval.
Sure, absolutely.
Do you want to go over the trees landscaping? Because that's an area there. I know when you met with Mr. Barnett and I in the TRC, we wanted you to put, because you were taking down about 100 and something trees. I think now it's 141. You were going to put as much landscaping on and a fence around the development. Can you talk a little bit about how much you're taking down, what you're replacing, and the fence?
Yeah, as you stated, we are removing 141 trees, and that's depicted on our demolition plan. What I have in front of you now is it's a new exhibit. It's Exhibit A5, and it was marked on May 2nd. It's a revised landscape plan that has not been previously provided to the board as part of the site plan application package. Since our initial submission, we went back, we took a harder look at the landscaping and wanted to provide something a little bit more robust to hopefully appease the board and incorporate the future vision of 22 with a greener, less hardscape look. I think what we had proposed really does soften the sight lines from Route 22 and try to incorporate as much green space as we could. As part of that, we did not propose a sidewalk along a certain avenue. We don't anticipate a lot of pedestrian movement in this area and felt that that area would better be served with green space than a sidewalk.
Can you tell us what trees you're going to actually replace?
The trees we're going to replace? So we are proposing 19 Princeton Century maiden hair trees.
I don't need, what's the total amount that you're going to be the trees? So I'll cut it short. Basically to say is what I'd like done, and I'm sure the board would agree, is what you're taking down 141, what you replace, there's a number. And I spoke to council about it today that the township has an ordinance for $100 per tree, that whatever the amount of trees, the delta between 141 and you're replanting, if you can safely plant as much on there, that's fine. But I thought Mr. Disco felt that you could probably do in the 40s. So you could be a deficit of 100 short, and then that would be 100 times 100, which would be an amount that would be put into the tree replacement fund that the township did. Counselor, we spoke about that today.
Yes, excuse me. Yes, that's correct. The tree ordinance, as you indicate, is $100 per tree. I think it allows 4 to be taken down, and then we would simply credit however many we're replacing, and whatever is remaining, we would be agreeable to making that payment to the tree replacement fund.
Yeah. So any condition of approval will be met with the fact that calculation will be done by the board engineer with what trees are left, and whatever the amount taken down times 100 will be put into the tree replacement fund. Is that correct, Counselor?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Can you describe the fence, and then you could see if there's any other questions, then we can open it up to the board.
Certainly. Before I get into the fence, we did provide some shrubbery around the entirety of the site, just to kind of break up that sight line and maybe perhaps hide some of the asphalt from the sight line as vehicles are driving on 22. We have a fence around our recycling enclosure, and there's an existing fence on the Nissan property that starts around our building corner, right around here, and then goes the majority of the property line north. So instead of putting another fence back to back, our thought was to enhance that area by putting some additional shrubs, trees, and plantings. But if it's to the board's preference, we can certainly add another fence right on our property line. My only concern is you would then have 2 6-foot fences right next to each other, and could be a place where rodents and garbage is collected, a little bit harder to maintain.
Perfect. Anything else?
In terms of landscape landscaping and fencing. That's all that I have prepared.
Perfect. All right, let's take this matter, open it up to the board. Now, Mayor, since you've had some of your question and answers, any other questions?
No, hey, just quick comments. Yeah, I agree on that. On the fence line, I think it's better to enhance that with shrubs and greenways along with the stern side. Prefer certainly green space to a sidewalk for that site. As long as the trees are, we're conforming to our ordinance that was passed. I am good with that and appreciate your testimony on the drainage. Did we say that we have a traffic, just a question quickly on the parking? Is that best for Rich?
Alex, the traffic expert, will address the parking variance.
Then I will no further questions for this one.
Perfect. Committee and Rich Huber?
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Barnett?
No, I'm going to hold for the traffic, but I do appreciate how thorough this application has been so far.
Yeah, it really has been. Mrs. Ruggiero?
Yes, I just wanted to kind of talk about the trees a little bit more. What type of trees are there now that'll be being removed?
Oh, we didn't let me double check. I don't know if we have the exact species from the surveyor. No, unfortunately, we don't have the exact species. There are a couple of larger trees, 36-inch, but most of them are just the smaller birch trees or almost giant weeds, to be honest, little 2-inch trunks.
Okay, so most are small trees. Okay.
Yeah.
And did we, was it a total number of trees that are being replaced? Was that given to us, or is that still being worked on?
At this point, we are proposing 33 trees.
33 trees. And is the type of trees on something that we have available to us, or is this just on this new exhibit?
On exhibit A5, we do have a schedule. So, for instance, century tree, honey locust, and a red oak are the 3 species of trees. And we also do have deciduous shrubs, which is a red twig dogwood, not a tree, but it does kind of change color with the season, and it does shed its leaves. So it does have some characteristics of a tree.
Okay. All right, thank you so much.
And Marissa, Mr. Disco is going to work with them to see if there's any other places to plant trees. We would rather have the trees on the property to make up for it than to plant them somewhere else. But if not, the township administrator did agree that they would be planting the trees throughout the township.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
And then may I just touch on the parking calculation before Mr. Gibson comes in and does his testimony?
Sure, but let me go through the rest of the board and then you can.
Okay.
Hopefully. Mr. Wishna?
I think the only question I've got, if we go to plan left, and the area, the parking spaces that border up against the Nissan lot, were those specifically dedicated for either customer pickups or employees? Did I hear that or not hear that? Or are they just general spaces?
Those are just general spaces at this point.
Okay.
Maybe you could identify the spaces where they're to be banked.
Yeah, certainly. So as previously mentioned, we are proposing 20 spaces to be banked, and they're indicated with a dashed line. So on the right side of the sheet or the eastern property line, there are 11 bank spaces along Stern. Those are the closest to the Stern and Route 22 intersection. Again, really trying to promote that green space and that sight line. So we decided that was probably an ideal location to temporarily, hopefully, permanently shave some asphalt. And then on the west side, again, the 9 spaces closest to Route 22 along the Nissan property are being proposed to be banked.
And so for the board aware, David Barnett and I met with them, and we agreed, that, from hearing all the testimony, that there was a very likelihood they did not need some of the parking that was there. So we asked them to bank some of the parking that would be subject, if they needed it in the future, they would go to the TRC, not the planning board, to come back and say, well, we need the parking. It didn't work out, blah, 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 blah. And that would be the way we would go.
And Rich, what would be the impact in terms of zoning calculations relative to the bank parking? There was a question Keenan had about that in terms of landscaping and the EV requirement. Was that taken into account relative to the bank spaces?
The landscaping was not. I'm trusting we'll work through that with Mr. Disco. I believe we would need to provide 2 additional trees to be compliant. But with everything else, the bank parking was included in the calculations.
Perfect.
Yeah,
if you
I said one more question before you advanced past me, and I'm asking this. I can't view my vision or zoom in close enough, but the one point of ingress coming from Route 22 into the site, I think you're answering the question. Is it are there do not enter signs on the 2 little curved areas?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
And DOT will also provide commentary on that as well if they want more signage.
Yeah, okay. That's all I need. That's it. Thank you. No other questions.
Mr. Brendel?
Yeah, 2 questions. The loading dock area, will that be visible, in your opinion, from 22?
For a very small portion, if we just did a simple sight line over this, we'd be able to see starting here. And then if we found that fence line, which is here, so you would really only be able to see this loading dock immediately in front of the egress point. And then there's some landscaping that could also block the view shed.
Got it. Was any thought given to moving the loading dock? I don't want to redo the site, but curious why you didn't put it on the back where you already have the trucks coming in and they could just back right in off of that ingress point in the back versus having to go around the corner, maneuver back in with parking spaces right there on the side. It seems like that would be a relatively, or at least maybe not tough maneuver, but more difficult than in the back. Was any thought given to that?
There was. As part of the upfront site planning process, we certainly considered that. But with the internal operations of the store, the loading being done in off hours, and taking the loading and putting it closer to away from the 2 streets, we thought it was a better alternative for the site to function with the loading in the location that it is.
Okay. And then the next question is, I think there's, if you zoom in a little more, I believe there's 2, looks like where the online order pickup spots in the front facing out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is there any concern, since that main thoroughfare past the store is what you would then turn left to get out of the site, any concern with trucks, having to pull in, back in, and then, maneuver with cars going all around them versus putting that somewhere else instead of right in the front of the store on the main thoroughfare?
Floor & Decor operates where the loading is done outside of business hours. So we don't expect customers or to interfere with, or conflict, I should say, with the delivery trucks after the store closes.
No, sorry, maybe I'm not. The 2 spots in the front there.
Oh, these 2?
Yes, aren't those for customer pickups that would only be during business hours?
Yes, I'm sorry, I thought you were referring to.
No, yeah, so my question is, if I'm a customer and I'm driving through the site, all of a sudden I stop, I make a left turn back in, and that's like the main thoroughfare. I was just wondering if any thought was given to moving that somewhere else, perhaps, instead of right in the front.
This is a prototypical approach from Floor & Decor. They've had a lot of success with it and haven't had any issues that I'm aware of. This is something that it's really no different than a Home Depot driving up to the lumber doors, other than you're backing into a space as opposed to pulling parallel to the storefront.
Right, the backing in is where the concern would be. Correct. I would agree with that. I don't love it, but no further questions. That's fine.
Mrs. Kessel? Sharon?
Nope, no questions. I was trying to take myself off mute.
Perfect. I have no questions. At this time, I know Keenan's got to drop off soon because he has another meeting. Can we get the planner on with Keenan real quick? Counselor, is that okay with you?
Sure.
Then we'll do
Okay, so we'll be going then, I guess, a little bit out of order. Donna, if you want to step up.
Keenan, did you have to drop off? Shoot. Apu, is Keenan on?
I do not see him.
Okay, that's fine. He said he reviewed it with the planner, and that's fine. And I have his comments. Go ahead.
Okay, so do you want to proceed with Donna now, or do you want to finish up with Rich and do traffic first?
I think Rich,
Just so you know, one of Mr. Hughes' associates is with us to help out.
Perfect. So let's go right ahead. I think we're done with the engineer.
Yeah, there were just a couple of items of relief that he didn't really address yet that it might be good to hit on at some point. Like the lighting, for example, which I know came up in both consultant reports, I believe.
Yes, C600. Yep. Yeah, Mike said there was no. I'm reading Mike's note that he sent to me. There's no violation of the ordinance anticipated, but just wanted you to discuss the shielding requirements for any timeout and dimming procedures, which I think you discussed a little bit about when the lights were going to be on, when the lights were going to be off in the beginning.
Right. Although Keenan's report indicated that there was a violation of the ordinance, so we did at the beginning indicate that we'd seek that design standard exception. Although if the board deems it unnecessary, then that's okay also.
We'll go through your planner and let's see what our planner has to say that's here, because Mike said there was nothing with lighting when we talked.
Okay, Donna, why don't you go ahead through your presentation? You've already been qualified and accepted as an expert. So Donna is working off exhibits that are also pre-marked that start with A7 and go through A10. And Donna, when you introduce them, if you could just recite the exhibit number, the name, and the date on the exhibit, please.
I'm going to go through a series of exhibits that identify the land uses, the zoning, the area context, nearby signage, and our context-sensitive visualization for the site. So the first one, preferred planning.
Before you start, just to get on the record, these exhibits, were they prepared by you or under your immediate supervision?
Yes, by my firm, yes.
Thank you.
So the first one is our figure 1. I believe it's been pre-marked as A7. It's entitled Land Use and Zoning, and the date of preparation is April 19, 2022. What we've done is taken an aerial image from Nearmap, a subscription service that we use. The base map was prepared on March 11th, 2022, so very recent aerial imagery via Nearmap. We've color coded the commercial land use along the Route 22 corridor, and we've identified the zone boundary that runs to the north of our subject site. We adjoin the I-20 district, and we are, of course, in the HC Highway Commercial District. Just touching on some of the nearby land uses, of course, immediately to our west is the Nissan dealership. On the south side of Route 22 is the Guitar Center, and farther east on our side is a medical office building and a mattress store and a currently unoccupied building. And farther down towards the Rahway River is a self-storage facility. Also opposite us on the south side of Route 22 are some national chains. Chipotle has a restaurant opposite our site, and farther to the east on the south side of Route 22 is a TGI Fridays. Our site is going to be redeveloped as a permitted use. The HC district allows retail sales and service along with offices, medical offices, and shopping centers. We have a component of our proposed development for very small propane storage, which you heard Julie describe as fuel for the forklifts. No sales involved, strictly utilitarian. Our position is that's an accessory use for our retail use to help with loading and storage on the site. I'm going to shift to our second exhibit now. This has been pre-marked as A8. It's entitled Signage Considerations. Same base map prepared by Nearmap Imagery. And the date of our preparation is April 19th, 2022. What we did here was superimpose the Kimley Horn site plan on top of the aerial to illustrate the proposed improvements and that they are in keeping with the highway corridor upon which we are located. We took into account some of the context sensitive elements to this project, and they're pointed out here in the yellow boxes. The two buildings immediately to our east have very small setbacks. They create some visual obstruction. We, of course, have two travel lanes on Route 22 westbound. Farther to the east, there's a wooded area here separating the mattress store and the self-storage. You get a good shot of the Nissan dealer and the extensive parking area that adjoins our property. Rich talked about the U-turns and the proximity here we have of the intersections, merging traffic on those U-turns in close proximity to our site. So clearly we are providing benefit by redeveloping this property, eliminating two of the driveways along 22, angling the driveways to promote safe and efficient circulation, and eliminate conflicting movements within this weave area where traffic is trying to find its way to merge and exit with the U-turns for eastbound Route 22. We've highlighted here also A, B, C, D in the legend, the nearby national chains. And we've also taken a close look at their signage. Our site, as Rich said, is about 4.4 acres. By far the largest in our study area. We took our study area from about the Rahway River over to Hillside on both sides of the Route 22 corridor, and also encompassing the properties immediately adjoining us to the north. Just by way of information, as I said, our site is 4.4 acres, the largest. TGI Fridays is about 1.9 acres. The Chipotle site is about 1 acre. The Nissan dealership is 3.7 acres, and Guitar Center is about 1.59 acres. We have several variances and waivers that have been identified by the township planner and the township engineer. And I'm just going to describe them and cite the sections of the code where we deviate and highlight some of the rationale while we have this representation of the Kimley Horn plan superimposed on top of the aerial. The rear yard setback variance is the westerly yard because it is opposite the shortest frontage, and that is the definition in the township's code. Only a portion of our building encroaches into that required setback area. In fact, about 97% of our building meets the setback that's required on the western side. The impervious coverage Rich talked about, we're landscaping the perimeter of the site, giving a nice treatment along both frontages. We're improving stormwater management, and we're removing about 7,800 square feet of impervious coverage over the existing condition for the 3 existing lots as we combine this property into one. The outdoor storage for the propane will be at the southwest corner of the site, of the building, excuse me, but because of the setback, about 140-foot setback from the highway, plus our landscaping along the frontage and its minimal usage, this will not be a prominent feature of the site, not conspicuous at all. The minimum parking standards, I guess we'll hear a little out of order, the engineer, but I did read the report done by Kimley Horn. I understand the surveys that they did, wherein they came up with a parking ratio that is more in keeping with the needs of this particular user, and far less than the township's required parking. And it also takes into account the EV parking bonus from our EV parking apparatus. The future parking is located along the east and the west portions of the site, again, allowing us to increase the landscaping and promote sustainability by reducing the heat island of the asphalt on this site, which is certainly a benefit. The loading spaces, we're required to have 3. The applicant has proposed 2. Again, that is user specific, completely in keeping with the needs of this user. As Rich stated, we're not proposing sidewalks along the roadway frontages, and the township engineer referred the impervious coverage to a section of the code that talks about not exceeding 80% impervious coverage in critical areas. When we look at the definition of critical areas in Springfield's ordinance, it pertains to environmentally sensitive lands, steep slopes, wetlands, and floodplain. We don't have any of those environmental sensitivities on this property. I'm going to shift now to the wall signs and my next exhibit. This is entitled Nearby Signage. It was pre-marked as A9. It's preferred planning group figure 2A, and the date of preparation is April 19th. When we did our field work, we also went around the study area that I explained before between the Rodway River and Hillside Avenue along both sides of Route 22. And we looked primarily at national chain properties and their signage as related to their lot areas in order to offer an opinion to the board on the appropriateness and the reasonableness of the signage proposed by this applicant in light of the variances identified by your township planner and township engineer. So just shifting to the specifics of what we've shown here, we have 3 photographs of the TGI Fridays from different vantage points. You can see the freestanding sign. There are in total 4 wall signs on each facade of this building. And there are 2 freestanding signs because it's got frontage on both Route 22 East and West. So on a site of about 1.9 acres, there's 4 wall signs and 2 freestanding signs on that site. Looking at B, which is the Chipotle site, pretty much directly opposite our site. Again, the lot area here is about 1 acre. And they have 2 freestanding signs and 3 wall signs. The Nissan dealer shown down here in photograph C is on a lot area of 3.7 acres. They have 13 signs.
Okay, I'll interrupt. I think you made your point with the additional signs, and I will put on the record that our board engineer, who was not able to be here, was comfortable with the signs that you had on there, but I think you gave testimony on that.
Okay, so I'll just sum up this one by saying with this application, the applicant is removing 28 signs from our combined site of the 3 lots that are combined. We are removing 3 freestanding signs, 2 awning signs, 8 wall signs, and 15 window signs. So a lot of sign removal there.
Yep, I think that's fine. We can go with that. You can continue.
Okay, my final exhibit, pardon?
No, you can continue. Go ahead.
My final exhibit and concluding with the statutory criteria for these variances. We looked at the township's master plan, the 17 REACs, as well as the 1997 comprehensive master plan, and then your 2005 REACs as well. And there is a central theme in the township's planning documents, and that is concern over the Route 22 corridor and redevelopment along that roadway, and the potential for signage proliferation and clutter. I believe those were the terms used in those planning documents. And I hope you will agree with me that this visual, which I just want to explain what this is, we took the SketchUp model prepared by the applicant's architect, the actual 3D model, and then we imported that into a Google Earth image, which I believe is from 2022. We geolocated it, so that building is exactly where it's designed to be. And then we provided some artistry with the landscaped areas, but we did it based on the Kimley Horn plan. They have a series of street trees that's on the landscape plan. We put them in at 14-foot planting height, which is why they're not entirely jumping out at you, because we're about 200 feet in the air on this rendering. But the purpose of this rendering was to demonstrate to the board affirmatively that this applicant is responsive to the master plan concerns about sign proliferation and the appearance of Route 22. Hence all the green area, which really distinguishes us from just about virtually every other site in our view shed on this visual. The township implemented ordinances in response to the master plan recommendations. And in section 35-31.1, the sign regulations have specific purposes listed in them. And we are consistent and compatible with at least two of them. One being encourage signs that are appropriate to the zoning district that the site is located in and consistent with the category of use to which they pertain. That is why in the preceding exhibit on nearby signage, we focused on the national chains near us, and we're looking at the relationship to lot area and number of signs. The second purpose of the township sign code that we are consistent and compatible with is establishing sign size in relationship to the scale of the lot and the building on which the sign is placed. Here I want to just get into a little bit our signage, which you saw the details before. We have one wall mounted sign on the east facade, which is completely in relationship to the 182-foot long building wall that we have here. And we have 5 signs on our front facade. We're not allowed as many signs as we have, and the height of the sign over our door is not compliant with the township's code. The reasons that we believe a C2 variance for these signs is within the purview of the board to grant is because they are an integral color scheme all the way around, uniformity, not haphazard. They identify the products that are in the store and also for customer pickup area, and our extensive setback from the highway, we believe warrants the height and the dimension as designed for our main doorway sign to orient vehicles coming into the site and pedestrians as to where the main entrance is, because this building wall along our front facade is about 365 feet long. So very, very extensive, and signage that is integrated with the design of the building, with the color uniformity and the spacing of the signs. We also have some variances or waivers that were identified by the township planner regarding the screening of our refuse and recycling area, which is over here on the western end of the building. We believe the fencing as described by Kimley Horn in conjunction with our extensive setback, the inset or indent, recessed area of loading and refuse, combined with the green area along Route 22 will minimize any impacts. And certainly they will not be substantial impacts from that. We also have variances or waivers regarding the exterior illumination on the site. There's a township requirement regarding the average illumination. We exceed that. We believe that the highway location, the high speed of traffic coming into the site off the highway, and our circulation and parking area warrants that. The average foot candles, I believe, are 5.3. That is not excessive given our location on a US highway corridor with high-speed traffic in multiple lanes and conflicting movements such as at the intersections and U-turns in the area. We're proposing, I'm sorry, we have one more variance waiver identified by your planner, and that has to do with the sign lighting. We have internally illuminated these signs that are wall mounted. Again, we believe that complements the architecture. The township code calls for indirect lighting. I don't think these signs would serve their purpose if we had indirect lighting, given our extensive setback and also the size of our site, some 4.5 acres.
Okay, I want to open it up to my planner.
I would just say that I concur. By the way, my name is Spatch Tran.
Glenn, does she have to be sworn in as she is our alternate planner for Keenan?
Yeah, because she's never testified here.
Well, let's do it.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in proceedings before the board tonight, so help you God?
I do.
And you're a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. You regularly appear on behalf of boards. You can put it down now, Smith. You regularly appear on behalf of boards throughout New Jersey, including Fort Lee, New Jersey, right?
Yes, Fort Lee and Teaneck and others. Yes.
And your license is valid as of tonight.
Correct.
Okay, so you have now been sworn in for the remainder of the year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good, Smith.
I don't have any particular questions. I would just say for the board that I concur that there are various benefits that outweigh the impacts. There is going to be landscaping along the perimeter, improved stormwater management, and removing impervious coverage. I think overall the appearance of the property would be improved. As she noted, signage would not be cluttered, and it has a uniform design and is set back far from the road. And considering all of the variances and waivers, I think that generally the benefits outweigh the detriments. And as she noted, there would be no impact to the master plan or ordinance.
Yep. Okay. Looking at Mr. Disco's thing just to make sure there's nothing. He agreed with the signs. It's okay with the sign variance. Yeah. Okay, I'm good. If you don't have anything further, I want to open it up to my board. Mayor Kaiser?
No, I have no questions on the signs.
Committee, well, not signs, anything planning related.
No.
Okay.
No.
Committeeman Rich Huber?
Nothing right now.
Mr. Barnett?
Oh, I'm good.
Mr. Brendel?
No, nothing.
Okay, for the record, Aaron dropped off and so did Sharon. Aaron and Sharon, how about that? Rhymes. Marissa?
Nothing for me.
Did I ask Mr. Brendel? I did. Mr. Wishna?
No questions for the planner.
Yes, and I have nothing further. Okay, planner, don't go anywhere because at the end I'll open up to the public and they may have some questions for you. If we can bring up your last witness just to talk about more so about the parking variance and some of the movements.
Sure, thank you, Chairman. Adam, please come forward. Adam is previously sworn. So Adam, Did you submit a report to the board, a traffic impact statement dated March 17th, 2022?
I did.
Okay, and I'm not going to do this, but if I were to ask you to go through that report in great detail, would your testimony reflect exactly what's written in that report?
Yes, sir, it would.
Okay, and could you just briefly give the board an overview of your conclusions and how you reached those conclusions, please?
Yes, certainly. So there were three brief elements that we looked at as part of the transportation impact statement. One was related to the trip generation for the site. One was related to site access, and the third was related to parking. Based upon the redevelopment of the site from the three existing land uses to the proposed floor and decor, we are projecting that the trip generation during the peak hours will be less in the future than what is currently allowed there today. So that takes care of the trip generation. From a site access perspective, we are consolidating our site access along Route 22 from the 4 existing curb cuts that are there today. And that will be replaced with 2 proposed curb cuts, essentially acting as one single driveway with 1 inbound curb cut and 1 egress curb cut, as previously testified, pushed as far west as possible on the site to minimize the ability for motorists to cut across Route 22 to enter into the eastbound U-turn lane. And then finally, as it relates to parking, Floor and Decor previously requested Kimley Horn to perform an independent parking generation study at 7 of their stores across the country. Each of these sites represented the top performing stores in their respective markets. And the results of that study indicated that the actual parking demand for Floor and Decor is less than the town's required parking. So where the town requires 1 space per 500 square feet, we're looking at 0.89 spaces per 1,000 square feet. The 0.89 is spaces per 1,000 square feet is based upon the highest day of the week, which is a Saturday. And that is the average parking rate across all 7 of those different stores across the country. As it relates to the Wayne, New Jersey site, the Wayne, New Jersey site actually had exactly 0.89 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet on a Saturday, which is consistent with the average of all 7 sites. And the proposed parking that we have on site is up to 163 spaces, with 20 of them to be banked parking. And that represents approximately 2.5 times more parking than what the parking study indicated would be needed. And then finally, as Mr. Prakanik mentioned, we have submitted our minor access permit application to NJDOT, which is currently under review.
Thank you, Adam. I don't have anything else for Adam at this point.
Yes, and so I'm gonna just to put on the record, I did confer with Mr. Disco, and he was supportive of banking the parking and felt that the parking variance was justified given the fact of the traffic engineer's report. For the record, I'm gonna take this opportunity to open to the board. Mayor.
No, that was very thorough.
Mr. Huber.
Very good presentation, though.
I should know everyone's thing. Mr. Barnett.
No, as you know, we talked about this in the subcommittee. My biggest issue is that egress adjacent to the U-turn. And I think that's probably the best we can do in terms of moving as far west as possible, because all of us who live here in Springfield have seen people do the craziest things on 22 trying to get to a U-turn. So anything we can possibly do to minimize that and a potential accident. But I do think people can egress on the Stern road side. So if they do, hopefully they'll think about that. If they do want to make the U-turn to go east, they can come out Stern, and then they have a lot more time. So.
And David, that's what Mr. Disco pointed that same thing out by separating it out from one side to the other. It alleviated as best as possible.
Yeah, yeah. But otherwise, it's a good improvement to the site. So.
Yep. Mr. Brendel.
Nothing for me.
Mrs. Ruggiero.
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Mr. Wishna.
I do have a question. I'm not actually sure if it's for the applicant or if it's more procedural for my edification, and it may not prompt another question. But given the parking variance, right? If the variance is granted, does it run with the property? Well, if they choose to not renew their lease after X number of years and this property gets re-tenanted and the use doesn't change, does a new applicant have to come back in for a modified approval?
Yeah, so the answer is no, but we're going to try to work with Glenn right now when we do approve, if we approve the application, to put something in that it's the parking variances for this use only and see how we can get away with that. That was another one of
I would even say not just the use, but the specific user.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
another flooring store comes, we can't vouch for that, and we won't have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, very unlikely that maybe you get a Dave & Buster's that could come in and take over the place in the parking.
Yeah, well, that's the point. So I have no problem with the parking variance for this user. And
so
no other questions then.
So so Glenn, that's one of the things we'll kind of word in there, that it's for this use only, and any further change in tenancy would have to come back to the board to evaluate any and all variances they need.
I already had that down, and I think you might even, I got the feeling that you might even want to have Mike just revisit it 6 months or a year from now, just to see if in fact they did need extra parking. It certainly doesn't sound like they do, but I thought that might be the direction the board was heading to. Should take a look at it 12 months from now, make sure there's enough parking. That's their challenge. If they don't have enough parking, people aren't going to keep shopping there on a really busy day.
Yeah,
So,
it's going to be up to them. They have the ability to undo the bank spots, which we would prefer
exactly.
not. But Mike, they have to come to the board. They have to come to the TRC, and Mike's not going to allow them to undo the bank spots unless they really, really need it with a study because of the grant.
And my suggestion is any change of use or occupancy would require a site plan, and then the board takes another look at it.
Yep, perfect.
And you figure it all out.
Good. And that was my only comment, that what I was going to make. So, Counselor, do you have anything further? I think the board's ready to open it up to the public.
No, I think that covers it. We went a little out of order, but I think we covered everything that we needed to cover. So,
but we got the job done. That's all that matters. Apu, any members of the public that wish to speak on this application for Decor 32022S, please come forward.
I'm not seeing any hands raised from the public, but Ms. Trahan does have her hand up.
Mrs. Planner?
I just wanted to ask and confirm that the electric vehicle parking requirements would be met, including the disabled parking space.
I believe those are currently shown on the plan. Rich, you want to confirm that?
Yeah, we are compliant with the current regulations.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Disco said they were, and had a deal that he would have to kind of figure out if they unbanked the parking, what would be the ratio with the unbanked parking.
Right. And one more question, something that I had talked to Keenan about before and didn't hear, that the revised landscaping plan, since there would be some potential changes, that would all be reviewed with Mr. Disco.
I think, yes, I think the expectation was that if the board was inclined to grant approval tonight, it would be conditioned on resolving the landscaping issues with Mr. Disco and or Mr. Hughes.
Yeah, so basically there's going to be a condition. They're taking out 141. They show 30 something being added in. I asked Mike this morning to take a look at it with the applicant to see where they can add more. I don't want them to jam it in and have stuff die. So they'll figure out what it is, and whatever the delta is, they'll do $100 per tree. I spoke with our township administrator. He agrees to make sure, obviously, that he exercises his duty to make sure the trees get planted as per the tree replacement ordinance.
Thank you for confirming.
Yep. Apu, any members of the public?
Seeing none.
By seeing none, I'm going to close this matter to the public and remand it back to the board. So, so the only other things that I want to put out, that they would do any bonding requirements, as Mike Disco would want, any performance guarantees on the trees and maintenance guarantees, so forth. Glenn can add that in. Anything that we may have missed? Anyone on the board want to jump in? Nope. Seeing none, then
I have a couple just before. You're going to consolidate the 3 lots, Howard?
Yes, that's correct. The expectation was that we consolidate by deed, I suppose. I saw
Yeah,
that.
I think that's all you need, Howard.
I saw in Keenan's report in the Ray line, it noted a subdivision, but I don't believe subdivision approval is required. I think it can just be a consolidation by deed.
I agree. I think you ought to just do it, and it'll be subject to Mike's review and my review. That's all, to consolidate the lots. Let me just ask you a question, because I'm just not sure of the answer. And Mr. Chairman, this is really more for you. That egress off of the site onto 22, is there a sign there that says no left turn out of there or anything? Or is it going to be designed so that it really makes it restrictive for people trying to get across?
The subcommittee, when we met with them, it was supposed to be designed at an angle so they couldn't do it, or that they really would have to make it, they made it difficult for them to do it. Does the engineer, Rich, want to opine?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a big consideration to our site layout, was to, from a geometric standpoint, prevent someone from making an unsafe move. We do have a no right turn sign as you egress the site. And we have do not enter signs where appropriate. We'll work with Mike Disco if he has
No
any
left
other.
turn.
No left. No, it should be no right. It should be no right, Glenn. It's no right, Glenn.
Okay. Is there any reason that we do or do not want Title 39 jurisdiction on their parking lot for safety? I don't know what you've done on big projects like this on 22. Maybe you don't, and I just throw it out to you.
So let's make a condition that if the applicant agrees to grant, if we require it during resolution compliance, that they would give Title 39.
You okay with that, Howard?
Yeah, as long as a decision is timely made so that we can submit what we need to and get it.
Howard, it's not going to slow you down. It won't slow you down one way or the other, buddy. I promise.
You're good.
Yeah, I think the board, we would get back to you by the next time we adopt the resolution. That's
all I have.
Okay, so then I don't think we need to, when we make the motion to approve, we could just say we don't have to repeat all the variances and the design waivers. We could say as outlined in our board planner and engineer's letter. Would that be okay, Glenn?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think Mr. Brendel wanted to make the motion. He was smiling.
I'll second the motion. Someone else can make the motion.
I'll make the motion to approve application 3-2022S Floor Decor Outlets of America with all the relief required as outlined in our board engineer and board planner's email, as well as any of the conditions that came up, not limited to the tree replacement ordinance, the review of some additional drainage, and so forth. Any and all that will get caught.
I got him, Jeff. We'll circulate it just like we did the last time.
There's always a back out there.
Brendel?
Second. You said it much better than I could.
Okay, perfect. I knew I would. Can we have a roll call, Jen?
Yep. Chairman Tiger,
Yes.
Mr. Brendel,
Yes.
Mayor Kaiser,
Yes.
Committeeman Huber,
Yes.
Mr. Barnett,
I think this is a great plan and a welcome addition to Springfield, and I vote yes.
thanks. Ms. Ruggiero,
Yes, with the caveat that with the trees, that's appropriately addressed. But yes.
Yeah. There will be no construction on site until all conditions in the resolution get met, including the trees.
Thank you.
and Mr. Wishna.
Very thorough job by the applicant and their professionals. It's a yes to approve.
Great. Thank you.
Motion passed.
Chairman Tiger, just one thing. Howard, I just want to alert you. Springfield is really concerned. The trees are not as much of an aesthetic issue as much as a water issue. So we're going a little bit beyond what you normally are probably used to dealing with on a site plan. But that's why it is important, because of all the water that we get. So that's if you look at the ordinances and stuff, it's a little bit different than what you're probably running into in certain areas. Okay, but okay. I'm done.
Good luck. Good luck. We're excited to have floor decor in our town. I think it'll be nice. I'm sad to see Macy's go, but it'll be a nice redevelopment there. The Nissan World redid a couple years ago, so it'll look nice. So good luck. We'll look to adopt this resolution at our next meeting on, I believe, June 6th, 2022. Any members of the public wish to speak on any business before the planning board? Apu?
Seeing no hands.
Seeing none, can I entertain a motion to close this meeting and adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, everyone, good May.
Right.
Memorial Day. Thanks, guys.